I'm Jason Klamm, and this is the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. The year is 1988. The album is the Off-White album, the artist Dennis Miller, and my guest is J. Elvis Weinstein.
Hi.
Hi. I'm so hurried and rushed sounding because I'm out of breath. But why'd you pick this album? Let's start there.
I picked it because I knew I owned it, and it hadn't been covered on your show before.
Yeah, right.
And I had an interesting experience with it because I didn't really think of it as particularly influential.
Okay.
But after listening to it, I realized it was hugely influential to me. It was such the epitome of 80s stand-up comedy.
It's true, yeah.
And looking back, and I started doing stand-up in 87 when I was 15 years old.
Jesus, man.
And I could hear... I totally aped Dennis Miller in my first hour of stuff. Like, I could hear the cadence. I could hear, I could hear the way he was organizing the material.
Wow. How old were you when you did your first hour?
I probably had my first, it wasn't a good hour.
You're right. Right.
But, I mean, the first time I headlined, I think I was 17.
Damn.
And that was, that was more like 45 minutes.
Wow.
Squeaking it out.
Wow.
But all that material, I moved out here when I was 20. So that's what I kind of consider my first hour, is the stuff I wrote between 15 and 20.
That's insane.
And I was on the road a lot as a kid too. So
how could you? They let you in clubs? Did you
they did.
lie?
I didn't talk. I only lied once.
Oh, okay.
When I was 16, I said someone else said I was 18, and I didn't correct them. But I didn't talk about it in my act at all, and I didn't look like I was a big fat kid, so I didn't, people thought I was 22 or 23.
Yeah.
I would generally just not drink in the clubs I was working at, so it was never really a big issue. But yeah, I don't know. I somehow slipped into this world and got treated like a peer and a professional, like, very quickly. It was really weird.
That's amazing.
And then I convinced my Jewish mother to let me play like one-nighters in North Dakota during spring break from high school.
God. Wow. So when you say you can hear it, is it in delivery? Is it in content? Like,
it's in all of the above. I mean, it's the epitome of an 80s stand-up act, I would say, just because it's like, it's jokes and an attitude. There's no vulnerability.
Sure.
You don't know a thing about him by the end of the set.
Right.
You just know his attitude and a bunch of jokes. And that's what most people's club acts were like back then.
Sure.
You built it joke by joke, and but you could even hear in Dennis's thing how it's like, the problem with having just, 200 jokes in your act is organizing them and remembering them.
Yeah.
So you have like these bullshit kind of segues, like, I do a lot of traveling, and then you do 3 different jokes about 3 different states,
So sorry. I warned him that this would happen. Hello? And no one's answering. Oh. Hello? Yes. Yes. Okay, I will come down and let them in. Thank you.
We're saving a bird.
That's right, folks. We're saving a bird, or at least helping it to its final.
I'm going to sit here and just spew profanity while he goes to take care of the bird.
I'm going to do 5 minutes of Dennis Miller. Cha cha. Bah, bah. Hey, I got a life to lead. Cha cha. Bah, bah.
I really could do my own podcast now. He's gone. No one's listening. Or I could just rifle through his office. I'll do neither. I didn't do it, though.
You didn't do it? You didn't know? No, that's fine. I
just started down the road and then shut up.
Well, the bird may be okay. So that's a
really?
good sign.
That's good.
Yes. Well, this is the weirdest episode. I'm so sorry. Okay, now.
Do you want to start over? Or do you want to?
No, you know what? I like the weird atmosphere that I have created.
Okay.
Okay, so you're a young comedian, like really young, like Eddie Murphy young. Like he started when he was 15.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so
he was more successful.
But but here's the thing. Like, you're also born into an age of comedy where that's interesting. So is it like It's not aping though. It doesn't seem like it. If you kept doing comedy, you must not have just been aping and like.
Well, I wasn't even consciously aping.
Yeah.
You know, it was, but I heard, I could hear the cadence in some of those old jokes.
Yeah.
I had a joke about hitting a deer with my car, which had happened, and the state trooper coming up to me and asking me if I wanted to keep the carcass. Said there's a lot of good meat there. And my joke was, of all the feelings I had during this experience, hunger wasn't one of them. I'll pass on the bumper buffet.
Wow, okay.
I mean, that's a fucking Dennis Miller
100%,
joke.
That's amazing.
I sort of sweetened it with a little extra Dennis Miller there.
Yeah.
But it was the same thing. It's like, here's a fact, here's my attitude.
Did that get you into...
That wasn't all my jokes, but
Sure.
but it was there, and I could feel it listening to Dennis's act and remembering having to, or like I was saying earlier, organize your bits through these very false very tenuous. Like, I travel a lot, and then because I have 3 separate bits about 3 states, that's
Sure.
the I travel a lot bit.
Yeah.
And you just write travel on your set list, and then North Dakota, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and then you go, oh, I can fit my square dance bit in that, But the thing about doing those kind of bits is, like, if you don't say I travel a lot, you don't go down into that room of material,
Right.
and then you get to the end of your set, and you're like, which bad segue did I not do to get to that 5 minutes of material?
Oh my God, I can't imagine. That must be like the worst feeling.
But that's what it's like with that kind of. I mean, now it's like I do stories, and it's a much more personal thing. But then it was like It was like walking down a hall of doors.
Yeah.
And in each door was like a chunk of material. And if you forgot to open a door, that chunk of material you never got to.
Yeah. God, as a lover of stand-up, like, I mean, I like stand-up, but I don't do stand-up. But as a lover of stand-up yourself, and then somebody who ends up doing it, that does feel like an ideal era to, like, find yourself, like, in, I think.
Well, it was ideal in the sense that, like I said, I found work at 16 on the road, so it was kind of like anybody who could middle, do 30 minutes. Could make a kind of a living. There was work. There was lots of work to be had. So,
Right.
But it wasn't, it was bars, and it was one-nighters, and it was, you'd play clubs, but you'd string them together with weeks of one-nighters all the time, and so it wasn't like quality stage time necessarily.
Sure.
There's a lot of it was just survival,
Was it that attitude and all the stuff that we're talking about of the era that attracted you to it, or were you already interested in comedy before that thing kind of became obvious to you?
It was a weird thing. I was like, I always associated with it growing up, and I always sort of like saw them on TV and saw my parents react to them, and like kind of went, oh, I'm one of them, kind of. But I never had a plan. I never was like the kid who wrote all these jokes for when the time came.
Yeah.
What happened was a friend of mine, one of my best friends, he had discovered this open stage, and then like we were hanging out Saturday night, and it was a Sunday night open stage. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go do this thing tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, I'll come with you. I'll do it too. I just jumped right in with him. And it was this club called the Ha Ha Club, which is also where I met Joel Hodgson. And it didn't have a liquor license, so my age wasn't an issue. And so my first year, that was kind of became my new home, and I was there all the time and doing all these sets, and it was a really good place to just learn how to do it.
Wow.
But by the end of that first year, I was in all the clubs in Minneapolis, and people just kind of went, all right, he's got an act, and I wasn't acting like a kid, and I wasn't,
Yeah.
But even then, I was like, really, I'm a peer now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, because I wrote a lot of jokes, and I always had new material, and I was clearly one of the guys who was working hard and knew what knew what had to be done to build an act.
How did you figure that out though at that young?
Just watching and just figuring it out. Yeah, I grew up in a really funny family with a pretty high bar for jokes. Like a good joke could change any bad mood in our house, and a bad joke could exasperate.
Yeah.
But nothing was sacred. If it was a good joke, you could get away with it.
Were there comedy albums in the house?
Not really. There was like 3 comedy albums. There was 2 Alan Sherman albums, and Cosby's first album.
Okay.
My parents who loved music just like stopped buying records when we were born, apparently by their by evidence of their record collection.
Yeah.
And so you just plow through what your parents have first.
Sure.
Bill Cosby is a very funny fellow, right? And
okay, yeah.
My Son the Folk Singer and My Son the Nut were
is so weird. We just did Alan Sherman for the first time a few weeks ago.
That Alan Sherman was like, in my head, he was way more formative than Dennis Miller was, because I learned Alan Sherman, I learned all about laughs from.
Yeah.
You know, like you could hear like where he was stopping the music to let the laugh
For
play
sure,
that extra
yeah.
2 beats, or and just being a kid in Minnesota, a Jewish kid in Minnesota, knowing that Jewish could play that well,
Right.
Outside of my house,
Mm-hmm.
it was an interesting thing.
Yeah, I forgot you did pick Alan Sherman first, and I was like, I'm so sorry. We just did it so recently.
He was the one I
Twice in a
thought
row.
about, but I'm actually really glad I did this Dennis Miller thing, because I just discovered what a plagiarist I am.
It's so great. When
But
do you know
everyone was. I mean, that's the thing. Is it like Seinfeld was doing kind of the same thing, but with his attitude applied to it, and even Roseanne's housewife act was just a bunch of jokes bound with that attitude. You know? So that's what everyone was doing, with a few exceptions. I mean, even Emo Phillips was just joke to joke, and Stephen Wright. But you think of Stephen Wright as a one-liner guy, but there's no more one-liner than Dennis Miller's act was.
Went to my first square dance in West Virginia. There's an activity I don't get nearly enough of, huh? What is this, dancing for people without imaginations, or what? I go to dance, I go to express myself. These people are into being ordered around the floor by some neo-fascist Sam Drucker, some sort of bizarre B.F. Skinner hoedown or something. What's worse than that is somebody who doesn't dance, rather they act out the lyrics to the song. Ever get stuck next to this asshole on the dance floor? Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough. Hey, pal, ain't no fucking dance floor wide enough, all right? What's with this kabuki shit, Twyla?
Do you know when you first heard this album?
I think when it came out.
Really?
Yeah, I owned it on vinyl.
Okay. So had you seen him on SNL and picked him up?
Yeah, no,
picked it up
I already
from
knew.
there.
I already was a fan when I bought it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a funny reference. That's also the year we started Mystery Science Theater. It was 88.
Oh, right. Yeah, jeez.
And so I was also thinking about just how reference-based, the commonality is. We weren't doing Dennis Miller, but we all had come, the Mystery Science Theater, those guys were all baby boomers and I was Gen X, but we all had collected from the same pop culture pool, and
right.
I was particularly interested in, making sure that no one could see, would come, oh, you're so young. So I tried to know everything anyway. But, you can't do that anymore. Like the reference base is so diffused now.
It's true.
That, but in 1988, you could do, hey, Aunt B,
right.
And everyone would know what it was, but now it's like you could do a character from Mr. Robot and no one's going to,
Right.
You're going to hit 5% of the audience.
It's so true.
And so references are like a whole different ball game now. But back then it was like, he was using them the same way we were, which is like a punchline in and of itself.
And I'm not ashamed to admit how much of his shit has always gone above my head, but continues to. At 36, he's still going above my head.
Well, as Van Leeuwenhoek once postulated, cha-cha.
See, that's so funny that you say that, though, because like in rewatching, because my wife and I, who's on vacation right now, started watching Mystery Science Theater from the beginning again. Finally, as much from the beginning as we possibly can.
Right.
And
you have to choke through my episode.
They're so good though, and like that's just it's those references that it's like, oh fuck, this wouldn't work for a young audience now, just because they're like
well, and back in those days, I mean, and even throughout the show, there was jokes that were just for 17 people. It's like literally, if 2 people in the room got it, it was like, okay, there's 600 jokes in the show, we can fit it in. So, I mean, there are some jokes that literally no one. They think it's above their head, but it's just like, no, there's no possible way you could know.
Could never get it right.
Because it's about something someone said in a car, in 1975 on the way to camp, but it became a reference to someone,
One of the great joys, though, is the obvious Minnesota references that I know I won't get.
Oh, crepes.
They make me so happy because I'm like, I know that's really funny to them.
Oh, the lutefisk and the,
So much of that.
Oh, the crappies. We'll catch some crappies and we'll take them down to the fish fry. Oh, yeah.
There was one that I actually had to reverse engineer. It was a Schlitz joke. It was a joke it was like a Bergman film sketch. I don't know what season it was in.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about that show, and that's the magic about certain referential humor is like if you reverse engineer it, you can kind of figure out where it came from. Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes.
Well, and that's why that show, I think people have such a personal relationship with that show too, is because, every one of those episodes you're going to find that magic joke that you thought only you had in your head.
Right.
And now you're family,
It's so funny. It's like you're in the room, and I just interviewed Harry Shearer a couple weeks ago by Skype, and I got to tell him, like, you guys taught a whole generation of people to think they could improvise. So just so you know, you're responsible for that. Like, you're in the room, I can at least say, like, you taught a generation of people now to think they can riff on anything, including myself. Like, I'm pretty sure it's one of those things that got me into thinking I could do comedy, because I'm like, I could do that, but that's really funny. But then you start riffing yourself.
I do that already. That was, I think, people's first response is, "Hey, I already do this."
Right. Yeah.
So it's just fine tuning from here.
For sure. Yeah. But doing it in a way that isn't obnoxious. That's the reason MST3K works, is because you're there for a reason. It's not like some asshole next to you in the theater.
Because what people don't know is that it was, aside from the original KTMA shows, which were improv.
Yeah.
It was a highly written show.
Yeah.
I mean, every joke was welded into place. It wasn't just, people improvising.
How difficult was it to, I know this is not an entirely MST3K episode, and I'm sorry, but how difficult was it to improvise?
It wasn't difficult because there was no bar. Each week we would set a new bar. At first the concept of the show wasn't even riffing, really. It was just, we're company for you while you watch the movie. And then you start throwing in these riffs. And then you start seeing more opportunities for these riffs, and then you start going, well, now there's an absence of riffs, and so you have to start filling that hole. And it got up to like 600 jokes a show.
That's crazy.
But it started as just like occasional comments. And then we started to try to impress each other and top each other, and really like see how many jokes we could fit in. And we didn't really believe it. We could fit that many in.
Right. I think if you watched those and like treated it as like an evolutionary study, you could be like, this is kind of what people have gone through in terms of like evolving into needing comedy, because you can just sit there all you want and just talk, but then eventually it becomes necessary to like, to riff, for lack of a better word. Like, you just have to be funny. You have to entertain one another.
Yeah, and you start feeling the holes.
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, it really was an evolutionary process, and because we had this no pressure situation to do it in, for no money, it was. We had 20 episodes before we ever tried to sell it to national TV. To figure out what the hell it was.
So I'm trying to find a Dennis Miller type segue. I don't have one. Let's go back to his album.
Well, there's lots of times with Mystery Science Theater where we just do a Dennis Miller.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a life to lead. Come on.
Did you wear this album out, or was it something you evolved past?
It was just something I owned, and I think I don't remember listening to it even very fervently. But I think there was also an HBO special.
Oh yeah.
So I probably saw that more than I actually listened to the album.
Okay.
But like I said, it wasn't an important album to me until like yesterday.
That's so funny.
When I kind of went, holy shit, this was apparently an important album to me.
Are there any bits on it that like stand out after re-listening to it, or from before?
Well, there's the ones I remember that were part of his sort of TV set stuff. The train, having I don't want to be on the train because I don't want to have a mode of transportation where the general public has access to the brakes.
Yeah.
Hate to think I spun off the tracks at 200 miles an hour because Gus thought he saw a woodchuck.
Which I think is a solid joke outside of the attitude too. That's where the ones I think that made me laugh the most.
Well,
were the ones.
Most of them are solid jokes.
Yeah,
there was one I actually wrote one down, which was the quintessential like I'm just throwing references in.
I love it.
He's talking about a guy sort of acting out the song on the dance floor, and he just like it was like alt punchlines. He was like, first it was like, what's with this kabuki shit, Twyla? So there's two references right there.
Loosen up, moment, Shantz. Get a limbo stick.
So 5 references, one
God.
joke essentially. But that was it. I mean, it was just an additional punchline. It wasn't even really a tag. It was like an alternate, But you can hear, you hear how he builds it. It's like, here's the punchline. Oh, I thought of a tag, and then and then bits build out from that, and I remember that. I remember that very sensation of organizing it that way.
Right.
You know.
Did this album? Okay, so like you said, you just sort of realized its influence. What other stuff? Like, what other were you mostly listening to and seeing? Local comics, or like, what was your exposure at the time?
My exposure, I mean, I guess it was mostly HBO stuff.
Yeah.
There was this one HBO. Do you remember that there was HBO on Location?
Oh yeah.
Standing Room Only was was comedy things, and there was like a best of Standing Room Only special once, which had this insanely wide range of comics from like Robert Klein to Red Fox, Toady Fields, and like Myron Cohn, and and David Brenner, and
crazy.
It was like a best of special of all of their stand-up specials.
Amazing. Okay.
But I had this real memory of like seeing that and watching it that whole month. It was on a lot, and just like that's when I kind of got, oh, there's a bajillion different ways to do this. This was a probably 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I wasn't like planning it, but I was like getting it, Mm-hmm. Like I was a kid, like I would watch Welcome Back, Kotter and like try to figure out the production, It's like,
awesome.
Where's the audience sitting? Where's the, I was never able to suspend my disbelief, really. I was always more interested in how it was being made, kind of.
I guess that explains, though, why you would be so fervent, or like in writing, like you wouldn't stop. It sounds like. I mean, if you're that curious about what makes this shit work.
I was, but I'm also kind of lazy, I think. Like I never, like all the things I ended up being, I never planned. Me becoming a TV writer was more of a result of not being that good of a stand-up performer at age 20. When I came to LA, everyone was like, "You're a really good writer," but no one was going, "You're a great comic." And so I got a writing job right away, and that was way more profitable and way easier than driving around the country.
Did that come?
I didn't get it right away, but I got some work right away, and then I started, being a Guild network writer at like 22.
Is that a result of people just? Were you sending out packets, and that's where they get the material? Were they watching you like, "I like this, I just don't like how you're doing it"? Like it's a way it sounds.
No, it was more.
Okay.
I mean, no, it was more people. I came out to LA thinking I was going to be a TV writer, but secretly hoping I would somehow become a star. I think.
Sure.
And then I realized, once I got to the LA clubs, I had this act that I had cobbled together, like we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And when you start taking that act apart and trying to build 10-minute sets, it just falls apart. And there was like, I just had nothing I could fucking stand behind. Even really, I really felt that way. So I knew I had to either like start over with stand-up. And this was like January of 92, when like alternative comedy was just sort of starting. And, so it was either like really hardcore club guys or, notebook shitting, sensitive people. And at 20, I like couldn't be either one of those, really.
Okay.
I didn't have the sort of manness to be on stage and really be a powerful act. It was always like, I was always very conversational, and, I would kind of draw people in, but that takes more than 10 minutes,
For sure, yeah, right.
So I realized that, like, no, doing 10-minute sets in LA is like a whole different skill than being, doing Sanford and Sons in Kansas City or Funny Bone somewhere, It's just a different gig, and I started to realize that road comedy at that time and show business, like, had very little intersection even. It was like, you could be a road comic and that'll be your life.
Yeah.
Or you can be in show business, but the two don't touch all that much.
Every time I go into the bathroom of a hotel, there are 2 switches on the wall. Never once in 5 years have I hit the light switch. I'm always sitting there in the dark with a nice breeze going from the exhaust fan. Why do they have the exhaust fan in the bathroom? Anybody having friends over for a sink hibachi or what? And if something comes out of you that's so bad that you need an exhaust fan, you're about to die within a week anyway, okay? And they're so paranoid about you falling in a shower, they have those industrial-grade sand strips on the bottom of the tub. Marriott is completely overboard. They have ski boots welded to the tub so you can, lean back and get at that hard-to-rinse area down here where you usually have to bring the water in on the arm viaduct, or else do the hydroelectric shuffle method, or arch the back at just the right angle to get that Chattahoochee Canal effect down there and rinse out the old DMZ, huh? We all think we have our own little secrets, don't we, huh? Or when we're alone, we all do the same stupid shit. You ever get a hole in the end of your sock? You want to wear the sock anyway, so you put the sock on, take it, elongate it, Bring it underneath, wedge it up into the toe groove, put it into the shoe, release, you got a whole new sock, huh?
And I discovered that through this podcast too. It's like meeting other collectors. Like I know one guy named Jeff Abraham, friend of the show, big time. Like he's really helped us out. He has a collection of about 5,000 comedy albums, and a lot of them are the road comics or the like local only comics. Like the guys who are just, I'm here to sell my records. You just enjoy my shit. Here's my raunchy album with a shitty cover.
Right.
And you're right. Like I don't think about it that way, but you're right. It's not show business in the same way. It doesn't have the same reach or the same overlap even.
Right. And it's a living.
Yeah.
You know, and you're entertaining people. I'm not trying to belittle it.
Sure.
But,
no, of course.
But it is a separate track.
Oh, that's so weird. I never thought of it that way.
And I think even comics that we think of as good comics here in LA, it's like they're doing a different act down the road.
Right.
Because people in LA don't really want to see your stand-up anymore. Right. They want to see you and your attitude and your vulnerability, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to hear, as Jackie Cation once said to me, they want to hear the story of the bit, not the bit.
That's fucking perfect. So if you come out here and you sort of discover that stand-up's not the same, stand-up's not the thing, so
I think it was more I discovered I'm not the thing.
You're not. Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I mean,
that's
I
fine.
always wanted
that's
to be
reasonable.
a stand-up, and I've directed 2 movies now, and I've done all this TV, but I still think of myself as a stand-up doing all this shit.
Does that change
how I self-identify?
Does it change your mentality, though, when directing and writing and stuff?
I think it's changed my mentality in terms of my editing skill. You know, that I'm a very less is more economical guy when it comes to the stuff I write and the stuff I direct. I kind of know what people, I've had so much lab time figuring out what people get distracted by and what, where they wander and where their attention goes, that I'm kind of hypersensitive to it.
That does make perfect sense. If you know how to read an audience out of enough experience, no matter what you're doing, I feel like having the time to pick and choose where your audience is going to pay attention, et cetera, you might be better aided by that kind of live performance.
Right. And the second movie I just did was about stand-up, so it was especially useful, I think, to have stand-up timing for it.
Yeah. So when you come out here and then it becomes writing. So where'd you start when you start writing out here?
I came out here and I had Mystery Science Theater as a credit.
Yeah.
I think the first gig I had was writing for Louis Anderson, writing stand-up for
Really?
him. Yeah. For a while, just like writing Tonight Show sets, and I did actually a Dennis Miller show set for him.
Wow.
That he actually bought a bit out of my act for like $3,000 and then went and did it on the Dennis Miller's show, and
amazing.
Didn't go that well, and he never did it again. So, but I bought all my furniture from IKEA with that joke, with that bit, with lots of callbacks.
Oh my God.
I wrote for Roseanne. Like she had me do a Vegas set for her, using like stringing together her 3 different specials.
Oh wow.
And that was kind of hard, and actually come to think of it, I sold a joke to Dennis Miller once for the Emmys.
Really?
Yes, he opened the Emmys with my joke.
Holy shit. What year?
1991, right before I moved out here.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
$50, baby.
It opened the fucking Emmys.
That's right.
That's amazing. Yeah. See,
yeah, and so I wrote like an act for the guy who hosted Studs, Mark DiCarlo.
When you say write an act, like you're pulling together their existing material and then putting your own stuff?
He had no material. I literally sat with him for a month of days and just tried to pull information out of him.
Holy
and go, that could be a bit, and then we wrote a joke. And
wow.
I didn't write an hour, but we wrote him, I think, 15 minutes of good, solid stuff.
God, that sounds impossible to me. That sounds impossible.
It's easy for me to write. I mean, now it's like it's like 30 years next January.
Yeah.
So it's like, writing for other people is not that big a problem. Writing for myself, I still can't find what the hell I want to talk about after all this time. But
the stereotype is to talk about your voice or this or that. What is it that? Do you know what it is, or is it just like this ephemeral
At this point,
thing?
I mean, it's like I think every comic, and I've talked to a lot of comics about this. I mean, ultimately, you evolve into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you want to be on stage.
Yeah.
Is the closest version of yourself that is acceptable to professional entertainment.
Yeah.
So and I think, I'm about there now. I talk about my life. I if I haven't done a stand-up set for a long time, I'll tend to write a new 10 minutes instead of trying to remember the last 10 minutes.
Wow. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the benefit of being not just a stand-up, but like a long-time comedy writer.
Right.
Is that I can trust that I know a solid punchline.
Yeah.
And so I can say it with confidence and not be out on a giant limb.
Yeah.
The trick is to say it with confidence.
Is that refreshing because you're bored with it, like the writing new 10 minutes, or?
Well, I don't have any end game with stand-up anymore.
Yeah.
Sure. A couple weeks ago, I went down to San Diego and middled for my friend Tom Segura, who's in my new movie.
Yeah.
Just because I love middling. It's the easiest gig. I'm not going to make a living at this anymore. I know Tom's going to have 7 sold-out shows in 3 days. So I can work on, getting a new 15 minutes together with no stakes. And I can throw Tom a bunch of jokes for his act because I watched it 7 times.
Yeah.
And and that was part of it, as I wanted. But those are my joyous days on the road, was being the middle for good headliners. Way more than when I was out headlining. Because then you just feel lonely. But
sure.
A lot of headliners would give me work as their middle because they'd leave their week with 5 new solid jokes. Or, or tags for 9 things, or because that's what I was, a geek. I was a joke geek, and I still am, and I still love, the game. I still love the little chess game of tweaking with jokes, but once I've fixed the joke and made it work, I don't need to do it for 6 years.
Sure.
No one's going to give me a special to clear off the decks. So,
right.
So I just do good gigs now. I play Acme Comedy Club in Minneapolis, which is sort of my home club, and I do that once a year.
That's awesome.
And, I do sets when my friends are doing shows. I did Andy Kindler's show. He's one of my best buddies. When, if people are doing shows and invite me, I'm there, But I don't pursue it like a real thing anymore.
Sure.
I just pursue it because if I don't have an act, I hate myself.
Where does that necessity to pick shit apart, like and put it back together the right way, come from?
I don't know. I'd love to like offer some broken childhood analogy, but I didn't have that really. I had this. I think it's just that my parents were like super observant people, and they were always doing postmortems of things. They were always, my parents were both really funny with a big mean streak, but super nice people. So they were never inappropriate.
Okay.
But after an experience with some jackass, they would compare notes as to what they were thinking at that time and trade jokes afterwards.
Yeah.
So they were never rude to this person, but there was this unspoken dialogue going on in my family. So even after family gatherings, we'd do a half hour of, can you believe Aunt Marge said that shit? You know what I was going to say? And just, and both my wife, my brother, and my fiancés, when they saw that, it took some real getting used to.
God, that's perfect though. You grew up with a family who gives you some, like, strong text and strong subtext, and then I guess you learn what to do with the math of that.
Absolutely.
God, that's so great.
My parents were both sort of social geniuses.
Because a lot of people, you're right. Like, it does come from, I was socially awkward. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I listened to my friends on the records, which is basically my story, right? So then I picked apart comedy, but I do like hearing that there's this opposing view.
Well, and it was approval in my house. I mean, my brother and I were both like smart, gifted children, and we each skipped a grade in elementary school. But it was like clear that like when my parents were would ever brag about us, it was because of something funny we said. It was never like, oh, you got an A on this.
Right.
It was like he said this funny thing.
That's fucking great.
And so that's the childhood line I can draw from, because laughter was approval. I mean, it was the highest form of approval, and it was their form of approval to the world too, and the joy that they got watching stand up on TV So I have no doubt that the psychological profile of why I'm a stand-up is that this thing of structuring. I don't know where that came from. Really.
But it's fun though, right? Like,
it's fun to
picking
me,
jokes apart.
Yeah, it's fun because there's an actual tangible payoff. It's like, if this works, I get a big laugh.
Do you ever have the moment where you're like, no, that fucking should have worked? You guys were wrong. Like, in your head, is that?
I'll say it sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, sure, of course, that's part of the whole thing.
But will you go back and tweak it from there, or are you like, no, this is the joke?
It depends how insistent I am.
Okay.
You know? There's sometimes where I'm not even going to fix it. I'm going to keep saying it, and show the audience that I'm taking great pleasure in saying this, whether you like it or not.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes, you tweak it, and sometimes you go, nope, that's never going to work. That is never going to work. Only you thinks it's funny.
I guess Reagan's hurting, huh? He had the rug pulled out from under. I'm sure he had felt he carved out a niche for himself in history as a pretty good leader, but I guess in retrospect, the big winner in that last election might have turned out to be Walter Mondale. Although I'm sure it didn't appear that way at the time. If you think about it, he's got to spend the last 3 years in a relatively normal existence with his loved ones outside the scrutiny of the presidency. But it must have hurt that night. What an ass-kicking that was, huh? This guy made McGovern look like William the Conqueror. I don't remember the final count, but I know when I went to bed, Reagan had 598 electoral votes. Mondale had 3. You think about it, that's only 3 more than I had. I didn't even run, This guy spent $40 million, and I almost tied him. So, you talk about not having a date for the prom, huh? Guess he'll be turning up in American Express card commercials. Hi, do you know me? A couple years ago, I ran for president. I got stomped like a narc at a biker rally.
After Dennis Miller, the accidental, unaware influence, like what other influences did you have that maybe I would know, maybe I wouldn't? Are there other influences that maybe wouldn't occur to me?
I don't. I was so unaware of the Dennis Miller one that I don't know. It's all just at some point. It's just like you watch good people and you soak up what's good about them and hope to spit out your own version of that.
Yeah.
But it's like I said. I think with most comics that I know, it's like the end game becomes being yourself.
Yeah.
And so whatever gives you the confidence, to wear your own skin on stage.
Yeah.
And trust yourself that like at this point, that's the only thing between me and full commitment to everything is just my own governor.
Sure. Sure.
So you have to sort of say to yourself, okay, no, I can trust. I'm 30 years in. I can trust myself to be funny now.
Yeah.
I don't have to have every word written out, and I don't have to have the exact phrasing because it's my whole thing that's now selling it. It's not just a very arch attitude. It's not
right.
It's not this absolute specificity of the wording of the joke, which I believed it used to be.
Right.
And that's the Dennis Miller school. Where it's a rhythm, where it's a joke is a hard cement thing. And that's not it anymore. In fact, when I find myself getting too jokey in a story I'm telling on stage, I'll sometimes just like start retelling the story as if I'm just telling the story, because you can lock yourself out of finding all the things that are funny about something.
I see.
Once you hit these joke points and you go, okay, if I go down this road, there's 3 great jokes that I know are going to work, but I really actually set out to go down this other road.
Okay.
And so sometimes you can find a bit like existing in a way that you never intended it to, and sometimes you go with the jokes that work.
Sure.
But sometimes you go, no, I'm just going to start telling this as a story again, and see if different beats emerge.
Do you think?
But that takes confidence. That takes time to be able to trust yourself that you're going to have enough. The other thing I've learned is have some punchlines, no matter what I'm experimenting with. Have some actual punchlines, and you can then meander down funny notion lane. But when you get to the corner, there better be a punchline. Right.
Do you think Dennis Miller's discovered who he really is, or did he find just a real convenient character to play?
I don't know what happened to Dennis Miller. I mean, that's the thing that sort of fascinated me about picking him, because it was like at first I was thinking I kind of wanted to almost dabble in Cosby stuff.
Yeah.
But then it was just, I feel too dirty.
I know.
Yeah. But Dennis Miller was sort of the light version of that, where he was someone who I had total respect for, and then he politically so went off my personal rails.
Yeah.
That his comedy stopped being funny to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because the things he was asserting on stage, I didn't agree with.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was interesting to me that I wanted to pick this moment where I really was a big fan, and where he was really at the top of his game, I think.
I was trying, I wish I didn't have this, like, that I had that perspective working against me listening to it, and I'm like, maybe he's secretly in there. Is
but
that
he was
like,
so
you know
liberal
what I mean?
back then.
He was very liberal. He's very arch.
I mean, if you look at him now, I mean, you would have gone, "Oh no, that was pretty Islamophobic," or that was
yeah. But
you know what he was doing on SNL was certainly lefty, and
yeah,
you know, and I think 9/11 is what made him, you know, jump the track to the other side.
yeah. I mean, he's pretty arch, but I mean that's just his personality. It's not his whatever it is.
And I know his two brothers, and they're pretty arch too. I mean,
really,
they really have the same.
Yeah, you talk to his brother Rich, it's like this. Hey, Josh, how you doing, man?
You know, and his brother Jimmy Miller is a huge manager.
That's crazy. I had no idea that there were other Millers out there.
Yeah, Jimmy Miller was Jim Carrey's manager and Apatow's manager and Tim Allen's for a while.
Wow.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Messina Baker Miller was the big management firm.
Wow. So how little I know about Hollywood.
Jimmy's a very rich man.
I bet.
Richer than Dennis, I'm sure.
Man, yeah. I mean, that's the weird thing is when stand-ups fight. But I don't even know. I don't even know if Dennis Miller would. I mean, has he had a special lately? He's just a TV person.
He did a special a few years ago, and they didn't play it much on HBO because it was very right-wingy.
Yeah.
And you know, he did it at a podium, and so it was extra, sort of extra preachy.
You know, there's one way to evolve. Like, do it how Carlin did it, like kind of gradual.
Yeah.
You know.
But it wasn't a gradual evolution for him. I think he really had like a major transformation with 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I know several people who did. I mean,
Yeah.
it really changed them.
Yeah.
But I saw him on a plane. I was sitting right behind him, and he was on the way to a show at like the Minnesota State Fair or something with Dana Carvey and I think maybe Nealon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was off to do Acme, I think. So I talked with him on the plane and stuff. So he's still out there doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much. I don't know. I think he has a radio show still too.
Oh, okay.
That's what he did for years.
It's so funny because the way we're talking about it again is like it's this accidental influence. So it sounds like you spoke to him, but it's not. You weren't starstruck.
No, and I've met him over the years.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
Yeah,
in 10-year increments, I've met him. You know. So no, I mean no, I'm not. I wasn't. I don't think there's any comic I'm starstruck
really
anymore at this point. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting to me. I mean, I guess if you've
the
worked
last
as
comic
much as
I
you
worked
have,
with
though,
Richard Pryor on a sitcom.
Holy shit!
I was starstruck with Richard Pryor.
I can imagine.
And he was like in a mobility scooter.
Yeah. But still.
But you know, I've been around. I mean, I fucking opened for Henny Youngman.
Really?
As a kid.
That's fucking great.
Bill Hicks was a buddy of mine for a while before he died, and you know, so I've spanned a long time.
Sure.
And then I worked on late night talk shows. My first guild gig was first a staff writer, then head writer of Later with Greg Kinnear.
Oh, really?
On NBC. And so, I mean, when you do that job, it's like there's a celebrity a day because it's a talk show. And so you get very, I don't know if it's jaded.
It's not jaded.
Because I don't think that,
it's okay
famous
to be
people are
used to
better
it.
people.
Right, exactly.
But there's some people who absolutely I have reverence for.
Sure.
But I'm not afraid to talk to them.
No, exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't used to have that, but having the podcast has made it a necessity. I couldn't come on here and babble like a dumb fuck.
Yeah.
Unless Weird Al comes on, I think it's established.
He's super nice.
If he comes,
he's
I know
like, he will put you so at ease.
I know, and I've met him a couple times. I was still a little like the butterflies, but if he did my show, although maybe all of a sudden I'd be like, well, he's doing my show, so now I've earned it, right? No, probably not. I don't know.
Right.
I'd probably wet myself still.
No, I bet.
The
thing that I assure you that you've realized is that comics have no problem talking about themselves.
Oh yeah, no, and it's great. I mean, well,
as I've proven.
but that's. I mean, if you can again, then obviously, like you said, you're closer to that goal all the time. The more you talk about yourself, maybe the more you understand it. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if that's true.
Now
look at Donald Trump.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh yeah. Good call.
I'm not sure that a bunch of self-awareness has bubbled to the surface.
Right. God, wouldn't it be so much better if that guy had just evolved into like a Larry the Cable Guy style comic, and that's all we had to put up with?
I think that would have totally fulfilled it.
Right?
Too,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see him so pained when he's on prompter.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're gonna have a rare occurrence in this when I ask you the question. If you're to recommend this album to anybody, why listen to this album? Do you have a good argument as to
I think if you need a tutorial on what 1980s club comedy this was obviously in the theater, but 1980s stand-up, this is it. I mean, there's no better example of what that was. This was really, it was a tight set with a great crowd, and it was, I think you could listen to any of the names you recognize from 1988 and you would see a commonality.
Yeah.
Between their acts.
It's so crazy because you say great crowd, and I was like, there are a couple times when I swear to God they laughed way before the punchline because they're so on board with this guy.
Well, but there was also times where they like totally waited for the punchline.
Yeah.
Like, really? And even he was like stopped because he thought the laugh would come at the ellipses. Instead of having to deliver the actual thing. But they waited for the actual punchline.
Yeah, because he is undeniably like a very smart dude and a very smart comic. Like,
right.
and so. Yeah, that's the one part that's like, oh shit. Okay, clearly he's not getting what he wants at this point. But it's not this. I guess all comics get that, I suppose.
Well, and even that, I don't think it wasn't what he wants. I think you want moments when you're on stage.
Right.
You want dynamics of moments. You don't want the same laugh 50 times in a row. You want sort of a journey. So I always think of it as very much as a conversation. And it was just their part of the conversation was like different at that moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they're so tuned in and they're waiting for the language to tell them.
It's true. It's true.
Instead of the rhythm.
So as we near the end here, do you have? I don't know when this is going to come out, so I apologize for that.
That's all right.
Unless you have something urgent, in which case I can put it out sooner.
I have nothing urgent.
Nothing urgent. But where can people find you? Is there anything coming up? Let's say within the next several months.
People can. The best way to find me is at Elvis Weinstein at Twitter. And I have a new documentary called "I Need You to Kill" about stand-up comedy in Asia.
That's awesome.
Starring Tom Segura, Pete Lee, and Chad Daniels, and many of the young comics of Asia. And that I just mixed it yesterday. And having a screening on the 22nd of this month, a private screening, and then it'll hopefully get out into the world by the end of the year.
That's awesome. Well, when it does, like, let's say something like, again, if something becomes more urgent about it, let me know and I'll release this sooner than that, because that would be important. Well, that sounds amazing. Is it a tour documentary or is it something different? I'm curious.
It's a tour document. It's a follow doc on this tour, but it's also exploring these scenes that are popping up around Asia.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And the story of a guy named Louis Lee who owns Acme Comedy Club Company in Minneapolis, who's a Hong Kong native, who brought these guys on this tour.
Okay.
And who runs one of the best clubs in America.
That sounds great. That sounds like a lot of fun. Well, thank you guys very much for listening. You can go to...
They're not listening at this point.
They're not listening. Go to stolendress.com. That's where all of our other crap is. Go to lookingforwardmovie.com. That's my movie that's coming out one blog at a time through November, through the election. That's it, really. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Thanks for putting up with me saving a bird's life.
You saved a bird, for God's sake.
I really did. It was mouth to mouth and everything. Mouth to beak. I worked my own joke out. It wasn't a joke. Barely a joke. Thank you guys for listening. And as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klamm. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. Please visit stolendress.com to listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, and if you like us, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. You can find us on facebook.com/comedyonvinyl, Twitter @comedyonvinyl, and find everything else at comedyonvinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit standuprecords.com for all your comedy needs and tune into the new Stand Up channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast. Hey everybody, it's Jason doing a little extra bonus piece of this episode this week. With me, I have a friend and a person with whom I have worked. If you guys ever listened to Dan and Jay's Comedy Hour, my other podcast, we did a pilot years ago. Janet was part of that. Her name is Janet Wood. She's the founder and executive director of Guided Good, which is a nonprofit which works to empower aged-out foster youth to serve an international community in need. Now, I gave them some words. Why don't you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
And yeah, we are based out of LA, and we're brand spanking new. So we're a very brand new nonprofit, and we're actually raising money right now to take our first trip in May to take 6 aged out foster youth in Los Angeles on an excursion, a cultural immersion trip to Nicaragua. For 1 week. So just kind of inspired by my own personal experience, I spent 3 months in Nicaragua, changed my life, and I think a lot of us have gone on powerful volunteer trips that have changed our life. And so basically wanted to be able to provide this kind of an opportunity to people who maybe couldn't afford it or don't have these types of opportunities. And in LA, aged out foster youth are kind of a demographic that's forgotten very often. So yeah, pretty much, within 18 months of aging out, which means they turn 18, they're out of the system, and then they're just kind of thrown into the world. Okay, like you're an adult now. And within 18 months, 40 to 50% are homeless or unemployed. So there's just kind of like there's really a lack of like inspiration and resource and just kind of anything really. They're just kind of surviving, right? So we're so used to, okay, once you get like all the essential needs, then we start to think of like things that inspire us, right? So I'm working very closely with a lot of incredible organizations within the Los Angeles area who actually work on a day-to-day basis on providing resources to aged out foster youth to help them transition into adulthood more smoothly. So my goal is through Guided Good is to kind of help take, some of those youth who are incredible and powerful and inspiring human beings and take them on a trip that will hopefully expand their worldview, help shift their perspective. I'm just like a real huge believer in the power of using culture shock to take us to new heights. So yeah, so that's kind of my hope.
That's awesome. So how you say it's pretty new? How long has it been in existence?
Yeah. So only about a year.
Okay.
So yeah, we officially, I believe, like literally, I filed the 501c3 like paperwork and all that good stuff last September, but we really didn't set our mission statement until this last January where we decided, okay, this is exactly what we want to do. So we basically spent this whole year just kind of figuring out, okay, when are we going to go? Who are we going to take? Who are we going to partner with? Raising money. So we're super excited because the trip, our very, very first trip, we're calling it our pilot trip, is happening in May. And we've, chosen most of the candidates already. Got a few of the mentors. And yeah, so we're really just kind of looking for people to partner with us, whether it's through resources or finances, or, we're also currently working on a format of buy a trip, give a trip. So basically, with only, I believe we settled on, it depends on where we're going. But for example, in May, we're going to Nicaragua. We're going to this small kind of fishing village right on the coast. It's beautiful. It's like beaches. It's just pristine, but it's a very, very small, it's still third world country. And we're going to be working with the local community there in a place called Mag Rock, and we're going to work with the community and support them in any way we can. So we're using kind of volunteer travel as a way to both give back to the places we travel to, but also to help. I'm a big believer that when you serve others, you actually heal yourself. So that's kind of the idea. But we're also building for anyone who's interested in actually going on a trip. We're building right now a program where you can raise money for your own trip, and in the process, you're also paying for one other aged out foster youth to experience the same thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested, they can go to guidedgood.org. That's our website. We're on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, I don't know. I just really believe in the power of culture shock and travel. So.
Now, when they get there, do you have a specific agenda for them, or is it? I'm just curious how this is going to go. This is pretty fascinating.
Yeah. So we're working with a nonprofit down there who works consistently with the local community there in Magroc, Nicaragua. So they have a lot of kind of needs as well, because it's a third world country, and there's just a lack of resources, specifically because there's now all this surf tourism that happens to be pouring in. A lot of times what happens is the actual local community kind of gets displaced, mistreated. There's not enough resources to recycle all the amounts of plastic that's coming in order to please new tourism and whatnot. So they kind of just get left behind. So part of that is we're going to be working with whatever the local community needs. So we're never going to go in there and be like, oh, this is what we think you need. Like a lot of kind of Western culture tends to do when they go and serve others. So it's like, hey, you guys tell us, and that's the power of who we're working with, because they see them, 365 days a year. So we'll be asking them, hey, what are your current needs? So right now we're working to solidify the project. It will most likely be educational related, or occasionally we might do trips that are related to health initiatives as well. There's also kind of a lack of awareness of just kind of balanced eating. So there's a high rate of diabetes in those towns, because it's just kind of a poor country. So we'll be going there. It'll be either health or educational related. So those will be most of the service projects that we'll be doing when we go down there. And since we're brand new, we're starting in Nicaragua. We'll probably go to Central America often, because those happen to be the connections we have. And to me, they're great locations that provide both, you get to experience another culture, but it's also someone who is in need. So maybe long-term down the road for us, we might see, other parts of the world. That's my hope. That's my prayer. Sure. But for now, I just happen to have a lot of connections and contacts down there in Nicaragua since I spent so much time there. So we're going to be starting with Central America.
Well, that's really cool. I like the idea that you're finding a way to give these former foster kids a new family. So that's, a sense of permanence will definitely help, and a sense of purpose at the same time is pretty great.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming everybody can get their information at guidedgood.org.
Yes, guidedgood.org. I would recommend subscribing to our mailing list to keep updated, especially as we're kind of unfolding this new kind of program of buy a trip, give a trip. And follow us on Instagram. That's probably Instagram and Facebook is where we keep the most updated. So, check us out.
That's awesome. Well, Janet, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thank you.
And everybody, please go to guidedgood.org. And as she said, follow them. And, I'm excited. We should check in a year and see how everything is. I'm excited to talk more about it.
I would love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.